Most people believe that life is what breaks them, but in reality, it is the instability of the mind that turns ordinary challenges into overwhelming burdens. When the mind is untrained, even small moments begin to feel heavy, and even simple situations start to create inner disturbance. A single opinion can stay with you longer than it should. A small setback can shake your confidence, and uncertainty can slowly turn into anxiety without you even realizing it. This does not happen because you are weak, but because the mind has been conditioned to react, to hold on, and to search for stability outside itself. In Buddhism, true strength is not about controlling the world around you, but about developing a mind that remains steady regardless of what is happening externally. It is a quiet, grounded strength that does not depend on approval, outcomes, or circumstances. In this video, you will learn how to build a mind that cannot be broken, a mind that stays calm under pressure, clear in confusion, and stable even when everything around it is uncertain. Lesson 1. Stop seeking comfort in everything. The mind naturally moves toward what feels easy, familiar, and comfortable. It prefers situations where there is no resistance, no uncertainty, and no discomfort. At first, this seems harmless. Wanting comfort feels normal, but when this becomes a constant habit, it slowly weakens the mind without you realizing it. When you begin to expect comfort in everything, even small challenges start to feel overwhelming. A slight inconvenience feels frustrating. A difficult moment feels unbearable. The mind becomes sensitive, not because life has become harder, but because it has become used to avoiding anything that feels uncomfortable. Over time, this creates a pattern where you rely on ease to feel stable. The problem is that life is not built around comfort. Situations change, people behave unpredictably, plans don't always work out. If your peace depends on everything feeling smooth and easy, then your stability will constantly be shaken. The moment discomfort appears, and it always will, the mind begins to resist, react, and lose balance. Seeking constant comfort also limits your growth. When you avoid difficulty, you avoid the very experiences that strengthen your mind. Discomfort is not always a problem. Many times, it is simply a part of learning, adapting, and becoming more resilient. But when the mind is trained to escape discomfort immediately, it never develops the ability to handle it. This does not mean you should force yourself into unnecessary struggle or ignore your well-being. It means you begin to change your relationship with discomfort. Instead of seeing it as something wrong, you start to see it as something natural. You allow it to exist without immediately trying to remove it. When discomfort arises, notice how quickly the mind wants to escape it. It looks for distraction, avoidance, or quick solutions. But if you stay with the moment for a little longer, without reacting, you begin to see that discomfort is not as powerful as it first appears. It rises, stays for a while, and then slowly fades. By not running away from every uncomfortable feeling, you build strength. The mind becomes more stable because it is no longer dependent on everything being easy. You begin to trust that you can handle situations as they are, even if they are not perfect. There is also a sense of freedom that comes with this shift. When you are no longer chasing comfort all the time, you are not controlled by it. You can move through different situations without needing them to feel a certain way. Your peace becomes less fragile because it is not tied to constant ease. In daily life, this can be practiced in simple ways. When something feels slightly uncomfortable, instead of immediately avoiding it, stay present with it for a moment. Observe how it feels without labeling it as good or bad. Allow yourself to experience it without rushing to change it. These small moments gradually train your mind to become more steady. You will notice that things that once felt difficult no longer affect you in the same way. Your tolerance increases, your reactions decrease, and your mind becomes calmer in situations that used to disturb you. This is how inner strength is built, not by avoiding discomfort, but by learning to remain steady within it. A mind that constantly seeks comfort becomes dependent and fragile, but a mind that can remain balanced even in discomfort becomes strong and unshakable. It does not collapse under pressure because it has learned that not every difficult feeling needs to be escaped. True strength is not found in always feeling comfortable. It is found in knowing that you can remain steady even when you are not. And when your mind reaches that point, comfort is no longer something you chase. It becomes something that naturally exists within you, regardless of the situation. Lesson 2. Don't give every emotion authority. Emotions are a natural part of being human. They arise in response to situations, thoughts, and experiences, and they can shift quickly from one moment to the next. Some feel pleasant, like calm or joy. Others feel uncomfortable, like anger, fear, or sadness. The problem is not that emotions exist, it is how much control you allow them to have over your thoughts and actions. Many people live as if every emotion must be followed. If they feel angry, they react immediately. If they feel anxious, they believe something is wrong. If they feel unmotivated, they stop taking action. In this way, emotions begin to dictate behavior. They become the authority that decides what you do, how you think, and how you experience situations. But emotions are not always reliable guides. They are often influenced by past experiences, temporary moods, and automatic mental patterns. A small trigger can create a strong emotional response that has little to do with the present moment. If you follow every emotion without question, you may act in ways that you later regret or misunderstand situations that were not as serious as they felt. When you give every emotion authority, your mind becomes unstable. Your state changes depending on what you feel at the moment. One moment you feel confident, the next you feel doubtful. One moment you feel calm, the next you feel overwhelmed. Because emotions are constantly shifting, your sense of stability also begins to shift with them. Learning not to give every emotion authority does not mean suppressing or ignoring what you feel. It means recognizing that emotions are temporary experiences, not commands that must be followed. You allow them to be present, but you do not immediately act on them. The first step is awareness. When an emotion arises, notice it without reacting right away. Instead of saying, "I am angry," you begin to see it as, "There is anger present." This small shift creates distance. You are no longer fully identified with the emotion, you are observing it. As you observe, you may notice that emotions have a natural movement. They rise, peak, and then slowly pass. If you do not fuel them with continuous thoughts or reactions, they lose intensity on their own. This shows that emotions are not permanent states, they are temporary waves that come and go. When you stop reacting immediately, you create space for clearer thinking. You are able to see the situation more accurately, without the distortion that strong emotions can create. This allows you to respond in a way that is more balanced and thoughtful, rather than impulsive. This practice also builds inner strength. Instead of being controlled by every emotional shift, you become steady. You still feel emotions, but they do not overpower you. They become something you experience, not something that controls you. This can be applied in simple ways. When you feel a strong emotion, pause before acting. Take a moment to notice what you are feeling without labeling it as good or bad. Allow the emotion to exist without immediately trying to change it or express it. This pause creates a gap where awareness can grow. This changes your relationship with your emotions. They no longer feel overwhelming or urgent. You begin to trust that you can handle them without reacting instantly. This reduces unnecessary conflict, both within yourself and in your interactions with others. It is important to understand that emotions are not the enemy. They can provide useful information about your inner state, but they are not always accurate reflections of reality, and they are not meant to control your actions. When you treat them as signals rather than commands, you regain control over your mind. A strong mind is not one that feels nothing. It is one that can feel everything without being controlled by it. When you stop giving every emotion authority, your mind becomes more stable, your actions become more intentional, and your inner state becomes more peaceful. Emotions will continue to arise, as they always have, but the difference is that you are no longer carried away by them. You observe them, understand them, and allow them to pass. And in that space between feeling and reacting, your true strength begins to grow. Lesson 3. Let silence become your default. The mind is often filled with constant noise. Thoughts move quickly from one to another, conversations replay in your head, and there is always something being analyzed, judged, or imagined. Even when nothing is happening externally, the internal activity continues. This creates a sense of restlessness that becomes so familiar you may not even notice how much it affects your peace. Most people are not uncomfortable because of their situation. They are uncomfortable because of the noise within their own mind. The need to constantly think, respond, and mentally engage with everything creates pressure. It feels as if the mind must always be active, always doing something, but this constant activity prevents you from experiencing stillness. Silence, in this sense, is not just the absence of sound. It is the absence of unnecessary mental movement. It is a state where the mind is not constantly reacting, judging, or creating stories. When silence becomes your default, your mind is no longer pulled in every direction by every thought or situation. Silence can feel unfamiliar. The mind is used to being occupied, so when there is nothing to think about, it tries to create something. It may bring up past events, future concerns, or random thoughts just to fill the space. This is not because something is wrong, it is simply the mind following its habit. But if you allow yourself to stay with silence, even briefly, you begin to notice something different. There is a sense of calm that does not depend on anything external. You are not trying to solve anything, prove anything, or understand everything. You are simply present, without the need to add more. Letting silence become your default means you no longer feel the need to respond to everything immediately. Not every thought needs to be followed. Not every situation needs to be analyzed. Not every moment needs to be filled with mental activity. You begin to choose when to engage, rather than reacting automatically. This shift creates space in your mind. Instead of being crowded with constant thoughts, there is openness. In that openness, clarity appears. You can see things more simply, without overcomplicating them. Your attention becomes more focused, because it is not scattered across unnecessary thinking. Silence also changes how you interact with others. When your mind is not constantly preparing responses or forming judgments, you listen more clearly. You become more present in conversations because you are not distracted by internal noise. Your words become more intentional because they come from a place of awareness rather than impulse. This can be practiced in small moments. When there is nothing urgent to think about, allow your mind to rest instead of filling the space. When a thought appears, notice it without immediately following it. Let it pass without adding more to it. These small pauses create moments of silence throughout your day. These moments begin to connect. The mind becomes less dependent on constant activity. You no longer feel the need to occupy every moment with thought. This reduces mental fatigue and creates a more stable inner state. It is important to understand that silence does not mean the complete absence of thoughts. Thoughts will still arise, but they will not dominate your attention in the same way. You will notice them, but you will not be pulled into them automatically. This creates a quiet background where your mind can rest. There is also a sense of strength in silence. When you are not reacting to everything, you become less affected by external situations. You are not easily disturbed because your mind is not constantly engaging with every stimulus. This allows you to remain steady even in environments that are busy or unpredictable. A mind that is always active becomes tired and unstable, but a mind that can rest in silence becomes clear and balanced. It is not overwhelmed by constant input because it knows how to return to stillness. Letting silence become your default is not about forcing the mind to be empty. It is about reducing unnecessary noise and allowing natural stillness to appear. The more you practice this, the more you realize that silence is not something you create. It is something that is already there, beneath all the thinking. And when your mind begins to rest in that silence, you experience a kind of peace that does not depend on anything outside you. It is steady, simple, and always available whenever you choose to return to it. Lesson 4. Stop measuring yourself against others. One of the most subtle ways the mind weakens itself is through constant comparison. Without realizing it, you begin to measure your life against other people, their success, their progress, their appearance, their confidence. At first, it may seem like a harmless habit, even a way to motivate yourself. But over time, it creates a quiet dissatisfaction that is difficult to escape. When you compare, you are no longer seeing your life as it is. You are seeing it through the lens of someone else's path. You begin to ask questions that disturb your peace. Why am I not there yet? Why do they seem ahead? What am I missing? These thoughts may appear small, but repeated over time, they create a constant sense of not being enough. The problem with comparison is that it is never complete or accurate. You are comparing your full reality, your struggles, your thoughts, your uncertainties, to a limited view of someone else's life. You see their results, but not their challenges. You see their moments of success, but not the process behind them. This creates a distorted perception that makes your own life seem less than it actually is. As this habit continues, your sense of self becomes unstable. Your confidence rises and falls depending on how you see yourself in relation to others. If someone appears ahead, you feel behind. If someone seems better, you feel less. This creates a dependency where your inner state is influenced by external comparisons rather than your own understanding of who you are. Comparison also distracts you from your own direction. Instead of focusing on your growth, your attention shifts to what others are doing. You begin adjusting your goals, your pace, and even your identity based on what you see around you. This leads to confusion because you are no longer moving according to your own path. You are reacting to someone else's. Letting go of comparison does not mean ignoring others completely. It means understanding that your journey is not meant to be measured against anyone else's. Each person is moving through different circumstances, different timelines, and different experiences. Trying to place all of these on the same scale creates unnecessary pressure. When you stop measuring yourself against others, your attention returns to your own life. You begin to see your progress more clearly, without distortion. You recognize what you have learned, how you have changed, and where you are going. This creates a sense of stability because your understanding of yourself is no longer dependent on external reference points. There is also a sense of relief that comes with this shift. The constant mental comparison begins to fade. You no longer feel the need to evaluate yourself against every person you encounter. This reduces a significant amount of mental noise and allows your mind to become calmer. This practice starts with awareness. Notice when your mind begins to compare. It may happen when you see someone's achievements, their lifestyle, or their abilities. Instead of following that thought, pause and recognize it as a habit. Remind yourself that what you are seeing is only a small part of their reality, not the full picture. Then gently bring your attention back to yourself. Focus on what you can do, what you can improve, and what is meaningful for your own growth. This shift may seem simple, but it gradually changes how you experience your life. You begin to develop a stronger sense of self. Your confidence is no longer based on where you stand in comparison to others, but on your own understanding of your progress. This creates a more stable foundation because it is not constantly changing. It is important to understand that comparison does not lead to peace. It leads to constant evaluation, and constant evaluation leads to restlessness. The mind keeps searching for where it stands instead of simply being present and moving forward. A strong mind is not one that proves itself against others. It is one that understands its own path clearly and moves through it with focus and consistency. When you stop measuring yourself against others, you remove a major source of unnecessary pressure. Your life is not a competition that needs to be compared or ranked. It is a process that unfolds in its own way. When you allow it to be that, without constantly comparing it to something else, your mind becomes lighter. There is clarity. You know where you stand, not because of others, but because you are fully aware of your own journey. That awareness brings stability, and that stability is what makes your mind stronger and more peaceful. Lesson 5. Detach from outcomes. Focus on action. Much of the pressure you feel does not come from what you are doing, it comes from what you expect to happen because of it. The mind is rarely satisfied with simply taking action. It immediately looks ahead, asking, will this work? What if it fails? What will I get from this? In this way, your attention leaves the present and becomes tied to an outcome that has not yet arrived. When your focus is fixed on results, every step begins to feel heavy. You measure your efforts constantly. If things seem to be going well, you feel temporary relief. If they do not, doubt begins to appear. This creates an unstable state where your motivation and peace depend on something outside your control. The truth is, outcomes are never fully yours to control. You can prepare, plan, and act with intention, but the final result is influenced by many factors beyond you. Other people, timing, circumstances, and unexpected changes all play a role. When you attach your sense of stability to something so uncertain, your mind remains in tension. This attachment also affects how you act. Instead of focusing on the quality of your effort, you begin to rush or hesitate based on what you expect to gain. Fear of failure may stop you from taking action, or the desire for a certain result may cause you to act without clarity. In both cases, your attention is not on what you are doing, it is on what might happen because of it. Detaching from outcomes does not mean you stop caring about results. It means you stop depending on them for your inner stability. You still set goals and move toward them, but your sense of peace does not rise and fall with every outcome. You act because the action itself is right, not because you are guaranteed a specific result. When you shift your focus to action, something changes. Your attention returns to what is within your control, the effort you are putting in, the clarity of your decisions, and the consistency of your approach. This creates a more grounded way of moving forward. You are no longer pulled back and forth by expectations. There is also a sense of freedom in this approach. When you are not constantly thinking about the result, your mind becomes less pressured. You can engage fully with what you are doing without the weight of future outcomes. This often improves the quality of your actions because you are more present and focused. This can be practiced by noticing when your mind is focused on results rather than effort. You may find yourself worrying about whether something will succeed or how it will be received. When this happens, gently bring your attention back to the task itself. Focus on doing it as clearly and carefully as you can, without adding extra mental pressure. This reduces anxiety. Much of worry is connected to trying to secure a future outcome. But when you understand that outcomes cannot be fully controlled, the need to constantly think about them begins to fade. Your mind becomes calmer because it is no longer trying to solve something that cannot be solved in advance. This shift also builds resilience. When you are attached to results, failure feels personal and heavy. But when your focus is on action, outcomes become feedback rather than judgment. You can learn from them, adjust, and continue without losing your stability. This makes your mind stronger because it is not easily shaken by external results. It is important to understand that action is where your true influence lies. The present moment is where you can think clearly, act intentionally, and make meaningful progress. The outcome belongs to the future, and the future is never fully certain. When you stay rooted in action, you remain connected to what is real and within your reach. A strong mind is not one that controls outcomes. It is one that remains steady, regardless of them. When you detach from results, you remove a major source of pressure. You stop measuring your worth by what happens, and instead, you focus on how you show up in each moment. Peace comes from knowing that you are doing what you can, as well as you can, without needing to control what happens next. When your attention stays with action, your mind becomes clearer, your efforts become more consistent, and your inner state becomes more stable. And in that stability, you realize something important. Your strength does not come from what you achieve, but from how you act, regardless of the outcome. Lesson 6. Limit what enters your mind. Your mind is constantly receiving input. Every conversation, every piece of content, every environment you spend time in, all of it leaves an impression. Even when you are not paying full attention, your mind is absorbing information. Over time, this builds a mental environment that shapes how you think, feel, and respond to life. Many people focus on controlling their actions, but they ignore what they are feeding their mind. They expose themselves to constant noise, endless scrolling, negative discussions, comparison-driven content, and information that creates tension rather than clarity. Without realizing it, this input becomes the background of their thoughts. It influences their mood, their focus, and even how they see themselves. The mind does not simply forget what it takes in. It processes, stores, and repeats it. A single negative idea can return later as doubt. A stressful piece of information can stay in the form of worry. Repeated exposure to certain patterns creates habits of thinking that feel natural, even when they are not helpful. This is why your inner state is not only shaped by what happens to you, but also by what you allow into your awareness. When there is too much input, the mind becomes crowded. It jumps from one thought to another, unable to settle. There is always something to think about, something to react to, something to process. This constant activity reduces clarity. It becomes harder to focus, harder to stay present, and harder to feel calm. Limiting what enters your mind is not about avoiding the world completely. It is about becoming selective. You begin to recognize that not everything deserves your attention. Just because something is available does not mean it is beneficial. This awareness allows you to choose what you engage with more carefully. One of the first steps is noticing how different inputs affect your mind. Some leave you feeling clear and calm. Others leave you feeling restless, distracted, or unsettled. By observing this, you begin to understand which inputs support your stability and which ones disturb it. This understanding helps you make more intentional choices. Reducing unnecessary input creates space. When the mind is not constantly filled, it has room to settle. Thoughts become slower and more organized. You are able to focus more easily because your attention is not divided across too many things. This space is essential for clarity and inner strength. It also improves your awareness. When your mind is not overwhelmed by constant input, you become more present. You notice your surroundings more clearly, your thoughts more accurately, and your responses more intentionally. This makes your experience of life more grounded and less reactive. This can be practiced in simple ways. Pay attention to what you consume, whether it is information, conversations, or digital content. Notice when something adds unnecessary noise or tension to your mind. Instead of continuing to engage with it, allow yourself to step back. You can also create moments where you reduce input intentionally. Spend time without constant stimulation. Allow your mind to rest without needing new information. These moments may feel unfamiliar at first, but they help your mind return to a more balanced state. This practice changes how your mind operates. It becomes less reactive because it is not constantly influenced by external input. It becomes more stable because it is not overloaded with unnecessary information. You begin to think more clearly because your mental space is no longer crowded. It is important to understand that your mind reflects what you feed it. If it is filled with noise, it will produce noise. If it is given space and clarity, it will become more calm and focused. This is not something that changes instantly, but it develops gradually as you become more aware of what you allow into your awareness. A strong mind is not built only by controlling thoughts, it is built by choosing what enters before those thoughts are even formed. When you limit unnecessary input, you reduce the source of many distractions and disturbances. Protecting your mind is not about restriction, but about intention. You are choosing clarity over noise, presence over distraction, and stability over constant stimulation. And as you continue to make these choices, your mind becomes quieter, more focused, and more resilient. And in that quiet clarity, you begin to experience a strength that does not come from controlling everything, but from being deeply aware of what you allow to shape your inner world. Lesson 7. Build inner stability, not outer dependence. Many people try to feel stable by arranging the world around them. They look for security in outcomes, comfort in routines, approval from others, and certainty in plans. When things go as expected, the mind feels calm. But when something changes, and it always does, that calm quickly disappears. This is because the stability was never truly inside. It was built on conditions that cannot stay the same. Outer dependence feels safe at first. It gives the impression that if you can just control enough things, you will feel settled. But life does not remain fixed. People change, situations shift, and plans unfold in unexpected ways. When your sense of balance depends on these external factors, your inner state becomes fragile. It rises when things go well and falls when they don't. This pattern creates a subtle anxiety. Even in calm moments, there is a background concern about what might change next. The mind keeps checking, adjusting, and trying to maintain control. It is always preparing for something to go wrong. This constant effort to secure stability from the outside becomes exhausting because it is a task that can never be fully completed. Building inner stability is a different approach. Instead of relying on external conditions, you begin to develop a steady way of relating to whatever happens. You recognize that while you cannot control everything around you, you can shape how you respond to it. This becomes your foundation, not what happens, but how you meet it. Inner stability does not mean you never feel challenged. It means that even when challenges arise, your mind does not collapse. There is a steadiness that remains, allowing you to think clearly and act with awareness. Emotions may still come, but they do not take over completely. Situations may be uncertain, but they do not create the same level of disturbance. This kind of stability grows through small, consistent shifts. Each time you choose awareness instead of reaction, you strengthen it. Each time you remain calm in a difficult moment, you reinforce it. Each time you rely less on external validation and more on your own understanding, it becomes more natural. One important part of this process is reducing the need for constant reassurance. The mind often looks for confirmation from outside approval, agreement, or signs that everything is okay. While these can feel comforting, they are temporary. If your peace depends on them, it will always be uncertain. Learning to trust your own perception reduces this dependency and builds confidence from within. Another part is accepting that change is inevitable. Instead of trying to hold everything in place, you allow life to move as it does. This does not make you passive, it makes you adaptable. When you are not resisting change, you are better able to respond to it. Your stability comes from flexibility, not control. This can be practiced by noticing where your sense of peace is coming from. Ask yourself whether it depends on something outside you, a situation, a person, or an outcome. When you see this clearly, you can begin to shift your focus inward. Instead of trying to secure the outside, you work on strengthening your response. This creates a deeper sense of confidence. Not confidence based on always being right or always succeeding, but confidence in your ability to handle whatever arises. This makes your mind more resilient because it is not easily shaken by changes in circumstances. There is also a sense of freedom in this shift. When your stability no longer depends on external factors, you are not constantly trying to control everything. You can move through life with more ease, because your inner state is not tied to conditions that are always changing. It is important to understand that inner stability is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you continue to build through awareness and practice. Each moment gives you an opportunity to strengthen it or weaken it, depending on how you respond. A mind that depends on the outside will always feel uncertain, but a mind that is grounded within itself becomes steady, regardless of what is happening around it. This does not remove challenges, but it changes how you experience them. True strength is not about creating a perfect external life. It is about developing a stable inner foundation that remains steady through both ease and difficulty. When that foundation is strong, you no longer need everything to go your way to feel at peace. And when your stability comes from within, you begin to understand something deeply. Life can change in any direction, but your mind does not have to follow every change. It can remain grounded, clear, and unshaken. And that is what makes it truly strong. A strong mind is not built in a single moment. It is shaped in the way you think, choose, and respond every day. It is built when you stop depending on what is outside you and begin strengthening what is within. Life will always test you in different ways, but when your mind is steady, those tests no longer feel like threats. They become something you can move through without losing yourself. This kind of strength is quiet, but it changes everything. It allows you to stay clear when others are confused, calm when others react, and grounded when everything feels uncertain. And the moment your stability comes from within, you realize that nothing has the power to break you anymore.